and welcome to the Becoming Mama podcast, where two long-lost best friends discuss all things motherhood. I'm your host, Emmy, and I'm here with my co-host, Sam, today.
Hello.
We have our wins and losses that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to dive into a great topic for the new year, which is reflections, resolutions, goal setting, all of those like new year vibes that you're thinking about right now. So we're going to talk about our process and our reflections, and hopefully it will spark some ideas in you. Do you want to start us out with your wins and losses? Win and loss?
Sure. Yeah. I had a pretty big loss this past week. I got the sample of my journal and day planner back, and I was super disappointed with it. It was just there was not a lot of room to write, and I just the appearance of it was just off, and I was like, well, this is not functional, so this isn't going to work. We have to figure out how to fix this. And that was on Thursday, and my publisher closed for 2 weeks on Friday. And so it was something where it's like, okay, well, let's like hammer this out. Let's get this back to press. Let's get this figured out. It was, okay, well, let's talk about this in January. And so what was supposed to be a January launch would be it's probably going to be February, March now, which was really disappointing. And they made some edits on it, and I could have said that it was fine with those edits, but I really think that we need to make the pages bigger and make the book bigger. And so that's what's going to take that extra time. And so the loss there was that it's not on my timeline. It's not what I wanted. It was just really disappointing, but the win there was listening to my gut and not being impatient, because I'm somebody who, like, I have an idea, I want it now, let's make it happen. And it was a time for me to be like, no, you need to do this right. And so we're doing it right, and it'll be out later this year, which is fine, and it'll be better. And it's funny because I was thinking about this actually today when I was thinking about this being my loss. Do you remember Nia when she was talking about the journal? She was like, it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. It just might like let go of your timeline. And now I was like, all right,
Yep.
I can do that. So comes back around again.
Yes. The universe is always like, oh, you're this way. Let me challenge you on that. Let me test you a little bit. That's always the lesson.
It is always the lesson until we learn it. So I think I took a lot away from that, because there's another thing I wanted to launch earlier this year that we just talked about, where I was like, I just don't feel like I'm ready for this. I don't think it's ready for me to do this. And so might just have to shift gears on what I focus on early this year, and that'll be okay. A lot of other things I can focus on for sure. So learning the lesson constantly. How about you? What is your win and loss this week?
Well, first, I just want to say I'm super excited for the quality. I think it's great that you're like pacing yourself and following your heart in that way. For my wins and losses, speaking of hearts, I'm going to update on the heart monitor situation. So found out I had to wear it for 15 days, which was a huge bummer for me. I just felt like that was a lot, and it just seemed like a lot of extra stuff to do right now, keeping it charged, keeping it on. Evie's always trying to rip it off because she's still nursing. So that was kind of frustrating, but then I also became extremely allergic to the adhesive pads, and so I woke up with like a chest covered in rash and boils that were like bursting. I'm getting a little too graphic, but it was terrible. And that was on day 3, the morning of day 3. And I'm like, wow, this is not good. This is really not a long-term option. So I called. There's like a 24-hour hotline. You can call anytime. They'll always answer your questions, which is really fantastic. Working with Mayo has been really good for all of Evie's stuff and everything we've had to do with them so far. But they sent me some sensitive skin patches, and I've been wearing those now, and they seem to be working fine, crossing my fingers. And so I think it's all worked out, and that's my win for today, that like I think that I'm no longer having an allergic reaction to the device and the pads. So I think it's like not as much of a bother now. I'm not really triggered by it. It just seems like no big deal. So back on track. I have 12 more days to do, and hopefully it'll be fine. There we go.
That's a lot of days, and that's unfortunate timing with the holidays and everything.
Yeah, but it'll work out, I'm sure. So
yeah, those days will pass, and at the end, you'll have more information than you had at the beginning, and hopefully can prevent anything in the future. So yes, long time,
Yes,
but in the grand scheme of
exactly.
things, not that long, but feels long when you're
Yeah.
in it.
So to start onto our topic then of reflections, resolutions, and goal setting, personal development. I don't know if you have like a specific outline or format that you want us to start with, but one thing I've been thinking about is if I do end up with any kind of procedure or anything like that, how does that meld itself into our plan for the year? And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on starting this conversation off?
Yeah, I just like this is something worth talking about in the motherhood space because a lot of times our goals and aspirations can take a back seat. And I think when it comes to having your own identity as a mom and as an individual, I think this is one of the biggest areas where we can get a lot of that back. So, how do you still focus on yourself? How do you still build those goals? What's achievable? What's attainable? How do you do that when you're in this space? And I feel like a lot of times those things do take a back seat. They become something that we don't think about anymore because our minds are so many other places. And I really think there's a lot of value in taking some time at the beginning of the year, every couple months, whatever that may look like, whenever you feel like you're in a rut, to reestablish some goals and some direction for yourself, even if it is maybe not to the degree that it once was when you didn't have kids or whatever that may be, but just something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And especially just knowing that, what is it? Most people, the statistic is give up on their for the year like within 15 days or something like that. So, especially as a mom, that's even more amplified because, we are like, "Oh, I'd really like to accomplish this in the next 365 days, whether that's health related or work related, anything." And it can,
Mhm.
easily just fall to the wayside.
All right, so I think what we can do is we can talk about what we do, what our processes are for setting goals and our plans for the year, and then talk about how that came to fruition last year, and then what we're planning on doing or hope to achieve in this next year. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Do you want to start us off with your process?
Sure. All right, so we have kind of a very specific process that we follow. We've been doing it for about 3 years. So we actually have a goal setting notebook, and it's a family and personal goal setting notebook, and we only use it for that one very specific purpose. And so at the beginning of each year, Zach and I kind of sit down and we make a very short list of things we'd like to accomplish together. So, last year that was getting new flooring in our house, which is something that woohoo we did, and it usually involves like some sort of debt pay down. It usually involves, we kind of have a vision for what our finances will be that year and whether we could go on a vacation, whether we could go on a day trip. What do we want to make sure we do? Oftentimes it's something like 1 day trip every quarter with the kids, that type of thing. So we're thinking about
Mhm.
quality time as a family as part of those goals. And we just sit down and then I have my section that's kind of business goals, and he has his section that's his personal goals. Over the last couple of years, he's been working on learning to play the guitar, so sometimes it's things like that, hobbies, different things. And then the other main thing that we do is we have like a little party. Usually it's on Christmas Eve, but sometimes it's at a different time with our family. And we have a Yule log. So we bring out this log. Usually I make Zach go, I'm like, go find a piece of wood somewhere. And we either write on it or we write little pieces of paper around it and we decorate it. And then we set very specific intentions as part of that process. And we sometimes share them, sometimes don't. Sometimes we write down things that we need to release for that new year, things that no longer are serving us that we want to get rid of. And we then, as a family, go outside and burn the log. We have some really great pictures in the past of, because we've been doing this for quite a few years now, where Fox is like not wearing any clothes. He's wrapped in like 3 blankets and he's like running around in the snow with his boots on. But it's a really special time. It's really fun. And
Mhm.
when you are setting intentions in a group of people that you really care about, I feel like it amplifies, maybe that's the word of the day for today, uh, the momentum, those goals or intentions that you're setting. So
Mhm.
the most specific one I ever remember writing is I wrote down on the piece of paper and I shared it with my family, I am going to quit I'm going to resign from my job this year. And everybody was like, like a week later, I did it. I put in my letter of resignation. I was like, that is my intention for the year. I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it. And that's the plan. Which, as a school psychologist working in the schools, it's like, for most people, you resign and then your paycheck stops in 2 weeks. For me, it was, I would be paid through the summer. So it was like I had plenty of time to plan, but it was still that making the commitment piece that was a big deal. That's really our process. On a personal level, I usually almost always buy one of the word of the year bracelets or one of the soul coup necklaces that sets the intention for kind of how I want to feel in the upcoming year. And so like the year I had Evie, the word was enjoy. The year before that, when I really needed to get my business running full time, it was work. So I don't know what my word will be this year. Honestly, usually I find one in a random generator. There's tons of generators for word of the year. You can go and you can just push generate, whichever one resonates with me. And sometimes I change it partway through the year because sometimes goals and priorities and values have to shift. So yeah. What about you? What's your process? Or do you have any questions about mine?
No, I think that's really cool. And I love how you have other people involved in it, for me, goal setting is a very isolated to myself experience. And I do see the power in having other people involved. Even when I speak it out on social media, and I talked a lot about how my word of the year this past year was bold. I was going to be bold, and I was going to say what I wanted to say, and I wasn't going to care what people said. I was going to do the things I wanted to do. And I had people encourage me all the time, like, keep being bold, because I had said that, and they knew that that was my intention. And so having that support behind it helped me keep going. So I can definitely see how that would be helpful. When you make your goals personally for the year, is there anything that you do to make those goals, or are they just things you kind of already have in your head? Like, I know I want to do this. Or is there like, okay, what's not working? What needs to work? Is there anything that you do to kind of fine tune those?
Yeah, I love that question, and something I actually forgot to mention that I meant to. So if you are familiar with, which I don't think you are, Samantha, but some of our listeners could be, there's a guy on Instagram. His name is Phil, and his handle is Phil Good Life, I think. And he is always preaching this concept of inspired action, and that truly being the compass for how you make decisions about what you need to do on the daily for getting to where you want to be in your life. And so it very much ties together with a concept that I talk about a lot, which is like hearing the call and answering it. Like whatever is calling to you from the universe, hearing that and accepting it into your heart and moving forward with that vision. And so I would say when I am setting my goals and planning out my intentions, I very much try to, this is something that's taken me a really long time to refine in terms of process, but block out the noise of what I think I should be doing and listen within to what am I actually motivated to do? What actually feels good? What feels fun? What feels exciting? And I also feel like I'm at a point in my business now where I can do that a little bit more because I have kind of a stable foundation. So that's a little bit different for me than where some people might be. Because sometimes when you're in the early stages of something, you have to kind of like grind through a little bit and do things that maybe you don't want to do just because you have to feed your family, and that's okay. And that's great too. Or that it could feel the same way if you're trying to transition from a job or do something else, go back to school, anything like that. But for me now at this point, it's very much like, what am I feeling very called to do? And also to, like you mentioned, looking back on what really isn't working and do I really want to continue to invest time in that? Because so much of running an online business specifically is what am I sharing that people are excited about, that people are reciprocating, and how can I run with that and build community and give them what they need? So yeah, thinking about those things.
I like that a lot. And that is a hard thing to do, to tune out the shoulds, but that's such a powerful thing, because I think a lot of us make the same goals every year because we think we should. I should lose 10 pounds. I should work out more. I should drink more water. I should do all these things. And yeah, maybe you should, but if it's not a internal should or internal I want to, need to, then it's not going to stick. Anybody else's imposed expectation of you as a goal is never, I've never seen that work out, where it's like, oh, I need to work out because my wife told me I should. And I used to work in fitness, so this is why I'm using this as an example. But people who would join Orange Theory and say, oh, my wife made me join because she thinks I should work out, they never come back. Like, it's not work. It needs to be something where you the consequences of not changing are perceived as worse than the consequences of the actions you have to take to change. Like, it's just this behavior change works.
Yes.
So I love that.
Yeah, there's a
For
little fire
me,
inside of each of us, and we got to feed it, right?
yeah,
Fuel it.
absolutely. Yeah, you gotta just gotta tune into it. For me, I do some similar things. I really enjoy free writing, taking 30 minutes and just free write about what is working, what isn't. I'll usually break it down into those pieces of like, what did I enjoy from the last year? What worked? What didn't? What did I try that didn't work? And I just like write and write and write. I'm like, that time is up. And what free writing is you just let whatever comes out come out, and it just kind of lets me get into that headspace. And then what I'll do is I'll write a vision for like, if I could have my perfect year, this is what it would look like at the end of the year. So like, I write a letter to myself from like December, and this is what my day of the next year. So like, it would be like from the perspective of 2024, like, Samantha, you wake up in the morning and you wake up your two kids, and you get to stay home with your baby, and you send Teddy off to school part-time. He goes to an outdoor school, and I write down all of the things that like the perfect day would look like and the perfect lifestyle would look like for me. And then I kind of go reverse engineer. Okay, well, if this is what I want my year to look like at the end of the year, then what needs to happen for me to get there? And so then I will also typically do like a values audit at this time as well, and like complete a values worksheet so I can get really clear on what do I value in this, and how am I honoring that, and how am I not? And then I'll also reflect on what hasn't, like, what's been my pain points recently, that like behaviors that I need to change. And so then I'll take kind of all of those things and I'll come up with a few goals for the year. A lot of times I separate them into like habit goals and then like measurable goals, right? So like, habit goals would be something like this upcoming year, I really want to work on my screen time. Like, I spend a lot of time just like instinctively, like just like grabbing my phone for no reason. Like, I just grab it and then I'm like, what am I like? And I set it down and it's just it and it doesn't make me feel good. And so like, there's that internal like, I don't feel good, and I know this is a cause, and I feel better when I'm not doing that, but my brain is at the point where it thinks that's what makes me feel better. So it's like, ooh, you're bored, you're uncomfortable, grab your phone. Where no, then I get uncomfortable because I'm on my phone and I'm being flooded with information 24/7, and I don't like that feeling. So it's really something that's not working for me that I need to change. But then I look at things that again maybe are working or that I want to achieve. And so like, how do I get to a place where that is able to happen? What are the action steps I need to take in order to do that? So that's, and then I like a little like wallpaper vision board
Hmm.
for my year. And then I refine that letter that when I wrote into like, these are the things you have achieved this year, these are the behaviors that you do, this is the person that you are. And I make it as if it's already happened, and I have it like hanging up on my bulletin board over here, and I'm excited to like pull that down and say some of the things that I wrote last year that have come true, because I have had that I set that intention at the beginning of the year, that at the end of the year, this is who I'm going to be. And I shifted a lot in this year, and I think because of that. So
Yeah, I love that. That's so
my
amazing.
process.
I usually vision board, but I haven't of recently, and I think kind of like reflecting on the things that you're saying now, I'm kind of like, oh, calling myself out. So, that's something I probably need to get back into because it's something I truly love and love seeing those pictures. I know the kids love seeing those pictures
Mhm,
of, where we're headed and what we're planning to do, and we always let them add a few
mhm,
different things too. Twyla's had a mini Jeep, like one of those big Jeep things with
mhm.
Minnie Mouse on it on there for a couple of years now, but she got a frozen car, so I'm like, I feel like that kind of but I probably need to ask
It's
her what
like,
she thinks about that.
yeah, that is a good point. Mine's on my computer, and there was one time last year when I was back at my job that I shared my screen with like tech support. I was like, well, tech support knows all my visions for the year. Um, and it's so funny that we're talking about like how this has to be internal. A lot of my goals last year were things that I thought I should do. Like,
Hmm.
I need to start drinking more coffee instead of like energy drinks and like amino energy. I don't like coffee. Like, that's never going to work for me because I don't like it. Now I'm at the point where I physically don't feel great when I drink a lot of caffeine. And so I have cut, you'd be so proud of me. I've cut back to under 200 milligrams a day,
Yes,
every day.
you
And I
are on the
don't
right
even
track.
want to go, I don't even think about it as much anymore. And
Wow.
so it's, yeah, it's internal though, because I knew that I didn't feel good anymore and I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And so like I wasn't sleeping as well, all of those things. Then I was able to change. But when it was something that I thought I should do, it wasn't going to happen. And I think I'd also like to point out how different our processes are and how they work for us. And so as you guys are listening to this, like, know that you don't have to do all of these things. There's no one right way to do this. There's the things that work really well for you. I would say things that help in setting these goals are knowing your values so that you can make those goals that actually mean something to you and aren't just arbitrary, aren't just like, well, I should lose weight. But if right now, like your health and your well-being aren't like big values to you, that's going to be a really hard thing for you to accomplish. If your family is and you have no goals related to your family and quality time with your family or whatever that may be, that your year might feel off because you're not in alignment with those values. So I would say that's something that's really helpful. And then I would also say, like, taking the time to do this with thought is the only other thing. However you do that, whether that is free writing, whether that is writing that letter to yourself, making a vision board, tuning into yourself and blocking out the shoulds, setting aside that time is really, really important. Again, this is something we do really flippantly. We're just like, I lose weight, or I just got to get off my phone. Okay, but how and why and when and like by when? What are your action steps? Like you really need that plan, or else it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it can be really hard to understand how powerful taking that Saturday afternoon or whatever to actually do this can be unless you actually do it. Because you will feel transformed after, honestly. Like, you will feel like,
Hmm.
okay, like, I really have my desires laid out, and that feels so good.
Absolutely. So let's do a little reflecting before we wrap this up. What were there any goals that you set last year that you were able to achieve?
Goals that we were able to achieve, I would say a lot in the home domain. So yeah, we did the flooring and quite a few other little projects. We had a deck that we needed to get put on in the back to satisfy the home insurance company. And so a few little things like that, which were really good. We did do the day trips with the kids that we planned on, so that was awesome. In terms of business, it's been a really weird year for digital marketing in general. Like, things are
Hmm.
shifting in the digital marketing space with AI making its real ups and all of these things. So I haven't really looked at what my business goals were for last year, but I think as always, as we sustained ourselves through the year, then I was 100% successful. And the big thing that has really been on our goal list for the last couple of years is that we really wanted to bring Zach home. We really wanted to kind of retire him and have him be a stay-at-home dad. And the reality is that with Evie's situation, that's not really an option for our family at this time. And so a
Hmm.
lot of the year has been grieving the loss of that goal, which we held in our hearts for years, and had on our vision board, and we took pictures of the kids and Zach, what they would look like on that day that that goal finally came into reality. And
Hmm.
so doing a lot of work to come to a place of acceptance and peace, contentment with that realization, because that's what is best for the whole family unit. And so we know that that's the path we have to be on right now, and that's okay. And I think that's something we don't talk about a lot, is the loss of a dream, or like a dream that didn't come true. It's not something that it's a lot of times something, and it's actually something I tried to do. I just tried to like be like, okay, we're just not going to talk about that anymore. We're not going to think about it anymore. We're going to forge ahead. And fortunately, I have a really wonderful friend in the coaching space who we did a session together where we actually sat down and we talked about the fact that that goal was not going to happen right now, the reality of the situation, the negatives that could have happened if that goal had come to fruition before our family was ready for it, and there could have been a lot of negative consequences. And then we also came up with like a plan for me grieving that vision of our family's future. And so I lit a candle every day for a long time and made peace with that. And I feel like I have come to peace with it quite a bit, but that can also be a challenge when we're goal setting. There's things that don't always happen. There's things that do not become reality, and that's okay, but it can take a while to feel right. And sometimes we have to say it out loud. We have to talk about it in order for our mind to become quiet and for us to find peace in our
Yeah,
hearts again.
that's so powerful. And thank you for being open to share that, because not everything is going to come to fruition. It's not. A lot of times, like you just said, I think that was a really powerful exercise to say what would have happened if this would have happened before we were ready for it. Like a lot of times things happen, so cliche, but things happen for a reason. But sometimes the not getting goal, not getting there, not getting the gift is the gift in itself,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Definitely. That was our situation for sure.
I can't find my list, but a couple of the things that I put on that list was that I was going to start a podcast, and here we are. That I was going to leave my job, and I did. That I was going to make the journal and day planner thing, which I did. And then I was going to bring Teddy home part-time, which I did. So a lot of those things came to fruition. A couple of things didn't. Like I thought I was going to be, after I went through my matrescence education course, I thought I would be coaching, doing group coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching. And at the end of that training, I was like, I don't feel like I'm the person to hold space for in this area right now. Like I don't think I can do that and do that well. I don't think I'm mentally there after my experience to listen to other people's experiences without grief and without jealousy and without fear. And so I don't feel ready for that. I don't feel like I have the time. I'm mentally and like energetically not recovered from all of the years of coaching that I've already done. So it was that will not come true because I no longer want it, which I think is also another thing that we don't really talk about, is that like your goals can change when you change.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a realization I had, that like, ooh, I always wanted to do this, or I thought I wanted to do this, and I don't think I do. And not just doing it because I said I was going to do it is always something that's difficult for me, because growing up, like, you're a quitter. If you don't do what you said you were going to do, you're a quitter. So it's like, I have to do what I said I was going to do. And no, like, yes, sometimes if you're not doing it just because it's hard, or it's because it's out, or it's because you're afraid of what people will think, then like, yeah, you need to follow through with that. But if you don't want to do it because you genuinely don't think you're the person to do it, or that you're ready, or that you want to anymore, then you can say, I don't want that anymore.
I also do the practice of writing a letter to myself, but it's a lot different than what you do. I don't really know how to describe what I do very well, but basically it's just a letter to myself that I will read at the end of the year or at the beginning of the new year. And my anxiety about reading the letter I wrote to myself kind of grows throughout the year, because I'm always worried that I am going to have written a letter to myself that's like, you did this and you did that, and then feel like I let myself down and I fell short of what I thought I would achieve. But what I find
Mhm.
after having done this for a few years now is that past me is super compassionate and loving and caring and forgiving of future me, and knows all of the hard things that are going to be happening from January to December. Almost has like this vision of like, well, you might have these really big dreams and goals, but there's going to be a lot of little things along the way that might kind of block things or shift things or make things look different than you expected they were. But the important thing is that, again, you tuned into your values, you took care of your family, you took care of yourself, you got enough rest, and you made it here. You made it to the next year as a whole person, and you are still, in a good place mentally. So now I kind of get a little bit excited to read that letter and be like, okay, like what does she think? What did past Emmy think?
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a great practice
It
too,
also
if you have that desire on your heart to write that letter.
it also always makes me excited about things again that maybe I forgot that I wanted, or like that I had wanted. It's like, oh yeah, I was really excited about that, and I totally let that fizzle out. Like, let's put that back on the list this year. Or versus being like, oh, I didn't do that thing. It's like, oh, I didn't do that thing, but maybe I still want to, and like, should I start working on that again? And I really like that feeling too. And looking at it that way, it makes it a lot easier to see those things that maybe you didn't achieve that you had wanted to. But yeah, you're right. I've never, as like never once written to myself, like, if you don't achieve this thing, then you
Exactly.
suck. It's like, you're doing your best. I'm so proud of you, and you are bold and you are brave. And you're like, I was.
Oh, yeah.
Ew. But there's also think that just like a quick aside before we end. I think there's a lot of shame in self-support, which
Mm.
is silly. But you know what I mean? Where it's like for you to say, like, I'm proud of myself and you can do this, Samantha, and like this is you are strong enough, you are smart enough, you are brave enough. As women, that feels a lot like being conceited or braggadocious or bossy or all of those negative words around being a strong woman who knows what she wants. And I would encourage you as you go into this year's goal setting to like just let that go and just be your biggest cheerleader, because you have to be. And there's no shame in that. Like, that is one of the bravest things you can do. So you got this, mama. You can do this.
There you
We're in
go.
your corner.
Samantha's personality really starts to shine. It's 2024, everybody.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's bring our words of the year next podcast. 'Cause I'm thinking about this now.
Oh, that's a good
I don't know.
idea. Yeah, I have really no
Yeah.
idea what mine will be. I have no plan, no clue. Yeah, everybody should bring their words of the year and think about it.
Yes.
And we should post something about that and try
Yeah.
to see what everybody's up to.
Yeah. We need to do like a get together sometime, like a live meetup.
Oh, that would be so
Chit
fun. You
chat.
should tell us what you think about that, listeners. If
Yeah.
you would like to see a little group. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I don't know how you tell us what you think. Tell us. We'll poll you on Instagram, I guess, maybe?
We could poll, and also you can send us a message anytime. Like, you
Yeah.
know, lots of people will send me a message and be like, "Oh, I heard that on the podcast," or something.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Well, I think that's it for this week's podcast. We hope you have a wonderful new year, and you can take some of these things that we do and try them out. Again, no right way to do this. Not saying our way is the right way. We just want to share our processes with you to maybe encourage you, spark some creativity, inspire, and help you get your year off to a good start. As always, you can give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, which helps us a ton. If you're listening on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, comment, and all of those things help us out a ton as well. You can follow us both on Instagram. Our links to our social media and websites are all down below. And we will see you next week for another episode. Bye!